What is up, guys? It's Fresh, back with another Storytime episode. Today we do have r/Entitled Parents. Now, this is one that I still get tons of requests for, and I think the stories today are pretty interesting. Who are you, and why are you in our pool? This was back in the days when you'd play with whichever other children you could find in your neighborhood until the streetlights came on, and then you'd run home before your mother started yelling for you to come in for dinner. I lived in one of the fairly nice homes in a newly built street where all of the homes were more or less the same and all had a pool, including ours. A few streets away, the houses were much less new, but I would frequent the park in the center of them. I made friends with another girl, friend one, who lived next to the park. Her house did not have a pool, so on hot days, she would knock politely on our door and bring a snack for us to share, and we would play in my pool for hours. There was another girl, entitled kid, a bit younger than us, who would occasionally join us playing in the park. She lived another few streets away from the park, but friend one was familiar with her and her large family of brothers and sisters who were both much older and younger than her. Friend one was very kind and would let entitled kid play with us, but would never let her follow us back to her house and discouraged me from doing the same. Friend one told me that she and entitled kid had been really good friends the previous year, but entitled kid had stolen her favorite Barbie and had never given it back. A few weeks later, entitled kid and I had become good friends despite friend one's warning. On a very hot summer's day, I invited both friend one and EK over to enjoy the pool. Friend one showed up with her usual snacks and toys for us to share, but when EK showed up, she appeared at our side gate with not one, but 5 members of her family. 2 of her younger siblings, maybe around 5 years old, and her 2 older siblings, a teenager and another a few years older than us, all of whom ignored me and barged straight past me to dive into the pool and started playing around and making a mess. I remember I was a little stunned and went inside to let my mother know we would need more sausages on the barbecue for lunch for my friends. Of course, she wanted to know why. I could only tell her that EK had brought some friends. My mother was stunned and asked me if I had invited them. When I said no, she stormed straight outside and told them that only EK was invited, that she was fine to stay, but that they were rude to invite themselves and there was no way it was safe for the 2 5-year-olds to be unsupervised. I remember the teenager had a few words to say, but my stepfather stepped in and told them to go home. EK was dragged out by the teenager and left scowling daggers at me. A few days later, friend one told me a lot of nasty things EK had been saying about me to her and the other children who lived in the area. I was so upset that I told my mother, who immediately took me over to EK's house to talk it out. EK's mother, entitled mother, answered the door. I remember she invited us in, and I remember both mothers insisted we children apologize to each other for any mean words and that it was just a misunderstanding, etc., all better now. EK and I played awkwardly for a little while our mothers chatted and had tea, as mothers do. Less than a week later, my mother, stepfather, and I returned from being out for the day and heard whooping and yelling and loud music in our backyard. We walked in to find the back gate wide open, and EK and her entire family, herself, her siblings, mother, aunts, uncles, at least 20 people, all fully clothed, messing around in our pool. There was food and rubbish and bottles absolutely everywhere. I remember my stepfather going red and immediately start yelling for them to get the hell off our property. I missed most of the argument. My mother sent me away so I couldn't hear the language that was being used, but I remember entitled mother screaming abuse and calling us names. The G-rated version would be rude white trash snobs. Later, my mother explained to me that according to EM, somewhere in their conversation about the quote-unquote misunderstanding, my mother had somehow given the impression that since EK was welcome in our home, therefore it must be open to their entire family. So they decided to celebrate an aunt's birthday in our backyard without asking us. We were terrible people for ruining the aunt's birthday party. Needless to say, my stepfather had to threaten to call the police before they would leave. EK never spoke to me again, and her younger siblings would throw rocks and sticks, etc. at friend one and I if they saw us at the park. I was slightly confused at first, as I'm thus far unaware of the existence of an entitled siblings subreddit. This story, which finds a home in Just Know Family as much as it does in Entitled Parents, proves again the absolute brazen acts entitled people commit. I was rooting for her at the start. Perhaps EK was an isolated incident, but it became very clear very quickly that this entitled mom raised her litter in her own image. Entitled parent demands to publicly humiliate daughter. I was about 13 years old when this all went down. I was attending a summer day camp with kids my age at a local YMCA. It was mainly for kids whose parents still had to work over the summer and couldn't be left home alone. Since we're in the southern part of the US, summers are stupidly hot and pools are packed. As such, part of this summer camp had the kids swim at the YMCA pool for a few hours every day. All of the kids would either swim in the pool or sit under a large pavilion with tables if they didn't want to. Since we shared the pool with everyone else who happened to come, naturally there were some oddballs. However, none could top what we saw on this particular day. It all started with all of us having fun playing tag in the pool when we noticed a family walk in with their daughter. This was unusual because the daughter had a large cardboard sign on her. Imagine a crazy doomsday person you see in a movie that had this long story detailing the daughter's actions at a church camp. From my memory, it explained that she was repeatedly disrespectful to the pastors and was always getting in trouble, which is not grounds for how these parents were treating her. All of us were genuinely concerned for this girl since she was being forced to sit out in the open and take the stairs from literally every passerby. Naturally, the staff caught wind of this and came to escort the family out of the facility, but the mom was not having it. Specific dialogue is hazy since 1, everyone was far away, and 2, it happened maybe 5 years ago, but I'll try to sum it up in the best way I can. Staff: excuse me ma'am, but we need you to leave. EM: why? Staff: you're causing complaints for how you're treating your daughter. EM: she's my daughter. I can punish her any way I want. Staff: that's none of our business, but we won't allow this to continue on our grounds. EM: this is a public pool, and I'm not hurting anyone. I don't have to leave. This went back and forth for ages until the owner of the facility was brought out to demand that the family leave. The mom reluctantly complied and glared at them as she left. I remember the camp counselor talking to us all about it and telling us not to make a big deal to avoid drawing attention to the poor girl. We never saw them again, but I still remember feeling terribly sorry that the poor girl had to live with such an awful human being for a mother. Would you look at that? A lesson from an entitled parent story that I genuinely agree with. Kid be damned, punishments have degrees of severity. This, for example, is a punishment that absolutely does not fit the crime. I sincerely hope there isn't a religious motivation behind the mother's actions, and likewise hope that over the past 5 or so years since the story took place, that the daughter hasn't been too messed up by her very entitled mother. We reserved those sunbeds. Now move. So we all know those people who get up at 6 a.m. and go down to the poolside at hotels and put their towels on their sunbeds to reserve them. Fair enough. But sometimes people take it too far. A couple years ago, I was on holiday with a friend in Spain. Lovely place. We were staying at a fairly large hotel at the prime time of summer, people everywhere. We followed the rules of going down early to reserve sunbeds and lay our 2 towels across them along with everyone else. Also staying at this hotel was a loud American family. Sorry, I know you're not all like this, US friends. 2 parents, 2 grandparents, and 5 kids. So 9 of them in total. They would also come down and place their towels down. Every single day they would put their towels down. Then as the sun moved around, they would ask people to move so they could lie in the sun. Keep in mind there is 9 of them, so that's like moving 3 groups of people if they wanted to swap. They would complain loudly, basically blocking the sun standing over them, asking them to move until the people would finally give up to shut them all up. The security in this place was pretty crap, so nobody's complaints got very far. On the Sunday morning before we had to leave back to the rainy UK, we came down at around 7 to put out towels, and we see most are taken. Okay, weird. We usually put ours in the same spot, but I guess we were late and chose another spot. We like to read, so we chose a shaded spot for most of the day. My friend is also a redhead, so she turns into a lobster when in the sun. We come down to the pool in the afternoon and see a lot of the sunbeds are empty. As the day goes on, we see this family move from spot to spot as the sun moves and shades their current spot. This family used the complimentary towels that were in the lobby and reserved about 40 sun loungers around the pool. People quickly realized what they were doing and moved their towels. This sent the family into a spit of rage, literally screaming as loudly as they could how disgusting people can be. Also throwing in the odd racist comment to some local Spanish girls sunbathing how they don't need any more sun. They claimed their kids had a special medical condition that required them to be in the sun for X hours of a day. Keep in mind that the kids spent most of the day in the pool, loudly shouting and being a general sore on the place. When the hotel security heard these racist comments, though, the line had been crossed. They were promptly removed from the premises, and all local hotels in the area were called and warned about the family. I hope they all got burnt. While I think we could all see what this was building up to, that inevitability does not make the act any less outrageous. Entitled parents? Sure. But also entitled kids. And entitled grandparents too, I guess, if that were a thing. What a collaborative effort, guys. Really, really great teamwork. But maybe next time try to tone down the entitlement and remember that you aren't the only ones using the hotel pool. Sure, accessible parking spots are for just you because you have crotch goblins. This is a story of a while back when I was about 16 or 17 and I worked in an open-air museum with their parking lot. During the summer, we have a rush hour with multiple buses and lots of people in the car. The open-air museum has 2 parking spots for disabled people. However, during rush hour, we move signs to create more if needed. So this one day, a large BMW comes in and parks on the spot for disabled. As I was the closest, I went to check up on it. We have a lot of taxis who also park there. Lo and behold, I did not see the required window sticker saying they are disabled, so I knock on the window to talk to the mother, EM, behind the wheel. I never got her name, but I am sure it was Karen. I told her my usual run of, "Good morning. I'm not sure if you noticed, but you are in an accessible parking spot, and I don't happen to see a card. Do you have one?" Despite the fact that it's not hard to miss the signs telling it's an accessible parking spot. I was always taught to assume the incompetence of someone rather than malicious intent. Entitled mom looked me dead in the eyes with a face that could kill. "We have children," was her reply, and opened the door, pushing me aside. I told her that, "Sorry, you have to park somewhere else." At this time, it got busy, and the parking lot farthest away needed to be opened up. She looked over to where the cars were going and said, "That's too far away. There are no disabled people coming here anyway. Why should they?" This is important later, karma being served. I tried to reason with her again, but she just ignored me. I called my manager to talk to her, but it didn't go much different. So my manager told me to call the tow company that normally was called in this situation. Here is the tricky part. The parking lot is a privately owned parking lot and police do not enforce upon it. The towing company takes 3 hours to arrive and set up. However, in the meantime, a small tour with disabled people entered. It was about 4 cars in total that needed a special spot. It was getting stuffed and we could not find for a spot for the last car because EM parked in that spot. This can always happen, and normally we use 1 bus parking space for the group, but we had run out of those too. My manager just asked for their phone numbers and told them to park in front of EM's car. It was the only way. When entitled mom came back with her crotch goblins, she was furious that she was not able to leave. We were quite willing to call the owner of the car and do a little swap. But when she came in screaming about how we are breaking the rules and how she will get us fired, I saw something snap in my manager. He calmly told entitled mom that they could do nothing as it was a car with a disabled sticker and thus the rules were different. She had to wait for them to come back. I had to call the tow company and ask them to wait just on the other side in case we had to tow. EM called the police and tried to blame us for having her child miss some important event. Despite the police not able to give tickets on a private parking spot, they were none too pleased about EM using said parking spot. They had a little talk with my manager and the owner of the blocking car, and the tow company was called again. The truck was there within a few minutes and the police went to ask for entitled mom's statement to distract her while the tow truck went to work. I never forget the eyes on EM's face when she realized the car that was towed was her own. She was completely dumbfounded. My manager told me that in the end, she had to take 2 buses to get to the impound center and get her car back. A few weeks later, we did receive a complaint and a letter from a lawyer that told us to cover all damages or else. I don't know how it ended though. I doubted that the museum paid any damages. I have become more hardened to those who park on the spots without having a label under their window. I'm sure many of you know someone who does utilize those handicapped spaces, and I can't begin to describe the frustration that I feel on their behalf when I see a car pull up with no signage indicating their right to said spot. It doesn't matter if nobody needs the space now and you want to get wherever you're going faster. It matters that it remains open for anyone who might actually need that spot, as they would be unable to park farther away. I'm not sure if it was the BMW or the kids that really shoved the entitlement into this parent, but I sure as hell hope that she learns to respect others a bit more. Thank you to everyone who watched this video. Be sure to subscribe for more daily Reddit content. Drop a like if you liked the video, and I will see you all tomorrow.